Hi, welcome back to Ozark Garden Talk with White River Nursery. I am Sarah McCue, owner of White River Nursery.
I'm Charity Cox. I do the plant buying here.
And I'm Alex Royce. I'm the general manager.
And today we wanted to talk about some of our favorite spring bloomers. And this was a really hard topic. It's early spring and every day it's a new favorite, I feel like.
Yes.
There's so much to see, and it's something new is showing up every day, so it's really exciting. And I had a really hard time narrowing down my list. I'm sure you guys did too.
Yes.
I think. Did you even finalize your list this morning,
No,
Charity?
we'll just see what happens.
Okay. Well, who wanted to get us started with their favorite?
Sure, I will. I mean, there's the classics. There's the stuff that really spring is coming. You start seeing that forsythia bust out, big, bright yellow blooms. It seems like also, this year the red buds have really been
amazing.
showing off. Have you noticed that?
They are super vivid.
They seem more noticeable this year. I don't know what's going on with that, but they're just absolutely gorgeous.
And they're holding.
They're sticking around for a long time.
Mine are still absolutely gorgeous, and they have been for going on a month.
It's kind of surprising considering the heavy rain, the wind, all that.
And the lack of rain earlier. So
right.
now we've had a flood. And now I haven't lost any buds really. So,
they've been showing off. It's been with some kind of hiccups in the middle. It's been a beautiful spring.
Yeah,
it's been really pretty.
I mean, the red buds are still, like I checked on the blooms, they're edible. So we can add them to salads. You can make you can add them to like a tea, almost like a lemonade too. And sometimes once they get too far open, they don't really have that flavor and they're not as tasty.
Right.
But I was checking them, I think yesterday or the day before, and they're still have that nutty flavor.
Really? Okay.
So I don't know why. Like you're saying, it's just like extended bloom season for the red buds this year.
Nice. I've seen some like jams and jellies maybe that some of the forager people on the videos show. Yeah.
Fantastic decoration on a cake.
Oh,
Remember
yes.
that a couple years ago?
Ooh.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They are so pretty. I was walking around Wilson Park in Fayetteville and was noticing about, I think almost 2 weeks ago now, there's a purple theme in spring. There's a lot of things that bloom purple. And I feel like, to me, I notice a lot of things blooming yellow in late summer. We have a lot of daisy-like blooms, wildflower types that just bloom along roadsides and stuff that are yellow in summer. But walking around the park, and this is not, these are not plants that are necessarily planted in their gardens, which Wilson Park, if you ever get the opportunity to walk around, is just almost a botanical garden of its own.
They do a great job.
They do, yeah. The city horticulture team, Parks and Rec, do a great job of planting all of our flower beds around town. But one of the purple things I have in my yard, I did not see it at Wilson Park. They may have it at Gully, though, because they have some other plantings at Gully Park, was rose verbena.
Ooh.
So that's on my list. It is actually a kind of a ground cover sprawling, it's a native, Glandularia condensis. It is, to my understanding, it is the mother plant of all of those annual verbenas that we have sitting on a table right now in the greenhouse, with the peaches and purple. I mean, there's so many variations of those annuals. But this one, and I could be wrong. I mean, I'm not sure, but I thought I read that.
I didn't know they bloom so early. That's cool.
It's in full bloom right now. I'll have a picture we'll put on the show notes on our blog, but it's been blooming for about a week at least. It caught my eye last week. And last year it took a few pauses, but it bloomed all the way through summer.
Wow.
I mean, it's just an awesome, and it sprawls across the ground, and over time it will become a fairly good ground cover and reseed in the area. I was peeking for tiny starts. This time of year also is where you go out and you just keep looking at the ground. It's not even the flowers. You're like, what other plants are popping up right now? So I found a few little starts. So I think it might have reseeded a little bit in my area. but it's a purple pink.
Nice.
Multi-petal. It has a fairly large zone, so it does well in a lot of places. It is a native, great for pollinators, and I think that each plant probably is like a 2-foot span across its
and then it
reach.
reseeds, so
and just spreads itself. So
right.
That's what's awesome about it. And it's living in kind of my prairie area, so it's hot and dry there, and it hung out with it all last year.
Nice.
So.
That's a nice one. It's so rare to find a perennial that blooms for that long of a time frame.
And it's
so
a native, not just, there's lots of perennials that we have that would qualify in other ways, not a ground cover. But yeah, the fact that it's a native for the butterflies and stuff, super fun.
That's awesome. That's awesome. One of the things that's waking up in my garden right now that I just love is the Fothergilla. I have blue shadow which gorgeous. I've had it. I love it. It's so pretty, and the blooms are so unique. We have blue shadow here, but they weren't blooming as profusely. We did have Mount Airy, which is a different cultivar, but these cool blooms, I don't know if they'll show up on camera. They look like little bottle brush cleaners.
Sometimes that's a common name for it.
Okay.
It gets a little confusing because there's several things
that are bottle brush. Yeah. These truly do look like a little, you'd clean a bottle.
And they smell good.
Yeah, they're so pretty, and they, like you could see, they bloom primarily on bare stems, which I think is so cool. I like it's just focus on the bloom, but then when the reason I love this plant is, you truly have 3 full seasons of just beauty, because you've got the really cool white blooms. Then the blue shadow is a really powdery blue leaf, which they almost look soft. They're such a pretty blue, and it's a glowy blue. It's a really pretty plant. And then the fall color is gorgeous. It has like the orange, yellow kind of multi-tonal coloring. I have mine in part shade. It probably gets maybe a couple of hours of direct sun, but mostly.
What time of day does yours get sun?
It's pretty midday, actually.
Really?
Maybe mid-afternoon, but and it might be more of no, it gets pretty direct sun for those couple of hours, but it's pretty brief. The rest of the time it's filtered. And it seems to be really happy. Blue Shadows it says 4 to 6 feet. Mine is 4 years old, probably 4 to 5 years old, and it's only about 3.5 to 4 feet tall and wide.
Nice.
But it's a real. What I was reading said that it can send out shoots and kind of
like sucker at the base.
But I have not noticed that, so I don't know. It must not be very aggressive, but.
Isn't yours kind of up against the house in the back?
It's up against my porch in the back, so
it's kind of contained in there. But.
Maybe it's but I haven't noticed anything aggressive, as far as suckering or anything, but it's such a pretty plant for such a long period of time. It's really a special one, and it's a cross between 2 native species, so it is a hybrid, but it's a cross between Fothergilla major, which is a much bigger, Fothergilla, and I think that's what Mount Airy is.
Yes. So.
Yeah. And then Fothergilla gardeniae, which is much smaller. So it's kind of that middle size. It's a really nice one size to fit in.
Those are both native species,
right?
That do grow here too, in the state anyway. So
nice, yeah. It seems very happy. It's pretty easy. I know in that space.
I would note that I've killed 2 Fothergillas, but we know what my yard's like now. Everyone should know. It must have moisture.
Yeah, I think that might be. Yeah, it is close to my back porch, so it's easier to get to.
Shade and moisture, I think, are key for it, and you've got like that primo spot, obviously.
Yeah.
We have some customers that have told me about theirs, and I know that they've got them in just the right spot. I moved mine trying to find the right spot, but there's nowhere in my world that they fit.
Darn.
So yeah, but they are beautiful. Yeah.
it's a real showpiece, I think. So.
What else you got?
Do you have any others, Alex?
Sure. The native columbine is one of my absolute favorites. It's
right here?
actually sitting right here. This one is called Little Lanterns, but it is just the straight native, the canadensis. And, you know, there are a lot of cultivars of columbine now that are gorgeous. I mean, there's blue ones, white ones. We were looking at that pale yellow earlier.
Yes.
And this one, you know, the blooms are smaller on it. But I just love it. It's so delicate and complex. And also these guys, this particular one tends to reseed, but not aggressively. It's not the kind of plant that's going to choke out other plants. I mean, it's short term in the spring, but they're so cute.
Yeah,
I love these little guys.
Even if it fills in an area, it's such a dainty foliage that other things can come through it as their season comes along. So I think that's what makes it so nice. It's almost lacy in its foliage. And it is great for pollinators.
I worked at another nursery a very long time ago, and we had a big patch of this on the property.
Ooh.
And it would actually come up in some of the tree pots.
Oh, yeah.
You know, it was the
awesome.
coolest
Bonus
thing.
plants.
Exactly. I mean, I love them. They're fantastic.
They're super sweet.
Well, and that's a shade
Yes.
lover. It can take morning sun, and I've had some people tell me they have it in fairly several hours of morning sun, and theirs is successful. But mine do best. I mean, definitely
And quite a bit of shade.
Seems like most of the real native woodlands, I mean, they're shade plants.
Right.
We've got the oak hickory canopy traditionally, and so they have
and
to be adapted to that.
they're getting sun to wake up in the spring and to perform their blooming cycle while the leaves are growing in.
That's exactly
and then they get the relief from our hot summer sun by the canopy coverage of the trees.
It's kind of a good plan.
Yeah. So
They know what they're doing.
if you think about those things when you're planting your plants, like where it would naturally sprout, in the ground from seed spread. So
so they probably wouldn't do as well under evergreen trees or whatever.
Right, the deep shade. But I mean, I've seen them sprout. I don't know if it really affects the bloom, like under say a cedar. But probably under a cedar wouldn't be favorable because of
Soil
water.
pH too.
Yeah,
it's very dry. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stick with shade since you guys kind of mentioned shade.
Yes.
I have a ground cover. It is not a native plant, but it has done so well. It's wood spurge. It's in the Euphorbia family, and I'm going to try this. Euphorbia amygdaloid. Does that sound right?
Sounds great.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's the Latin. It is 6 to 12 inches, 6 inches with the foliage across the ground. It does spread. It does rhizome spread like sucker across the ground, which is exactly what I wanted it to do. So it's doing its job. I'm going back to round leaves. I mentioned that on a recent video on our social media, but I really enjoy the round leaf plants. That's just like a soft shape to me.
They're really cool.
And so this is a deep, solid green. And the flower, it's flowering now. The flower is actually green too. It's like these little cups with a little bit of yellow in the center. And we'll put that picture in the show notes too. So it has filled in. It's a shade plant. It is mostly evergreen. So like this year, mine stayed green. It gets a little burnt with the winter until we had the -3 for that day or two. Then it browned it down. So it does get hit sometimes, but it comes right back from it. I don't know if there's a pollinator that visits it, honestly. But it's a very unique flower shape, so it would probably
looks
be
like
a
little
specialist.
saucers.
Yeah, it does look like saucers.
And I mean, Euphorbia, that's a huge family of plants.
It's so big.
And we do have native Euphorbias in southern Texas. They're called poinsettias. Euphorbias are all over the place. I mean, Crown of Thorns is a Euphorbia, the little diamond frost filler.
Yeah.
There's so many of them.
And none of them really look the same.
They
like
don't.
I was going to say that's very varied.
Related.
Yeah, I mean, some of them just look like a cactus, and it seems like the only thing they have in common is they all have that milky
right, and
latex
it does.
sap.
Yeah, it does. If it breaks, you can. That does not. So far in my life, that has not bothered me. I know it really can bother some people, and you should wear gloves or long sleeves if you're having to like prune or remove or whatever. Mine fills in underneath a Japanese maple I have right at my front. My house faces north, so it really doesn't get a ton of sun ever. And so I have a low growing mounding Japanese maple, and then this kind of round shaped ground cover with the wood spurge, and it's just such a nice accent and contrast to because it is a lace leaf Japanese maple.
Ooh,
so it's very
so you've got a lot of different
Mm-hmm.
textures there.
Yeah.
I bet that's pretty.
It's a really cool. And it's blooming now, and it's just green, but it's still a bloom.
Mm-hmm.
So
We'll have to leave pictures in the show notes because that sounds really cool. Well, I do have a lot of shade as well because I have a lot of pine trees around my house, so I do have a lot of shade plants. So, but one thing I'm dealing with right now is my hostas are all getting eaten by my chickens. So I'm trying. They're very, very tasty. I know a lot of people have deer problems with hostas, and but mine is chicken problems. So they go through every day to see what kind of new juicy hosta sprouts they can find, and they're starting to kill my hostas, so it's really irritating. But I've been looking at alternatives, and I think I'm going to replace a lot of the hostas with Brunera.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome.
Which I love a foliage plant. I'm a sucker for a foliage plant, and Brunera not only gives you just gorgeous foliage with these big silver kind of heart-shaped leaves, or some of them are green, some of them are veined, but a lot of silver. We have a couple of cultivars. Jack Frost, I think, is coming in this week, and we have Alexandria right now, which are both more of the silver ones. But then they put out these, over the canopy of the leaves, they put up these gorgeous, pretty bright blue.
They are a true blue.
A very true blue, which is unique
Rare.
and hard, to find. Kind of airy flowers.
Tiny,
yeah, they're so pretty. They're so cute, but the leaves are a very coarse texture, so I've heard that prevents some deer browsing. So I'm hoping.
What about chickens?
I know the chickens.
So I can testify the chickens don't eat it.
Oh,
now,
good.
It won't mean
Okay.
that they won't scratch around it and mess it
Tear
up
it
that
up.
way, but
Right.
they're not. I have it. Mine's blooming now.
Okay.
And last year, mine bloomed for over 3 months, and I was just like blown away. It finally established, I guess.
Okay.
So I'm hoping it does that this year.
I was going to ease in. I mean, I had them in the wrong, or I had planted one last year, but I put it in the wrong spot and did kill it. But so I'm trying to. I was going to slowly transition, but maybe you've encouraged me to
It's awesome
to plant a few
I mean,
more.
Again, it's living at my house, so it's tough.
So it's tough, yeah.
And I think I planted 2, and I only have 1 left. But part of that was chickens scratching the ground, not eating it.
Right, they're good at digging stuff up.
Yeah.
They're irritating.
But it's I don't know if it's true forget-me-not flower. It's probably not the same, is it?
No,
The same
they
shape.
call it a false forget-me-not
False,
as
okay.
one of the
But it is that blue.
Right.
So it is super cool and just dainty, but yet the big heart silver leaves. And in shade, when you have foliage plants like that have that contrast, that brightness to bring in, it's so nice.
It is. And I've seen some images of them paired with some of the darker leafed, even like the oxalis or coral bells. Yeah. And it's just that is such a pretty contrast. And you're right. The silver does just kind of glow. I've noticed in shade, the lighter colors like those citrusy blue or citrusy greens and the silvers just really pop. I like dark foliage as well, but the bright colors do really show up. But yeah, I think they get about 12 inches tall. The blooms might shoot up a little bit, 15 to 18, a little bit higher than that. But
and their width is bigger because they kind of, their leaves are large and they kind of spread.
They do spread, and from what I read, they will self-seed as well to kind of fill in. So I need that in some spaces. So I'm excited to kind of start swapping out my hostas for something a little tougher, hopefully.
What else did you have, Alex?
Well, I mean, there really are a ton, you know. I feel like we'd be remiss if nobody mentioned dogwoods at all. I mean, our native Cornus, Florida, just absolutely stunning. And you were talking about earlier, you know, when the blooms come on before the leaves. And that seems to be really common with spring blooming woody trees and shrubs in particular. And I mean, I love a dogwood. To me, it's a very Arkansas thing, you know, when you actually see them out in a non-cultivated setting, they're beautiful. But I mean, yesterday I was talking with some people that have been out at the Buffalo, and I'm terribly jealous. I'm too busy this time of year to go out and do these types of things. But they were talking about out at Lost Valley, you know, all the dogwoods, the trout lilies, oh
gosh,
we are lucky. We have so much beautiful stuff that blooms here in early spring that really just reminds us that the winter is over, and I'm tremendously grateful for that.
Yes, there is nothing like looking through any woods, because down in where Washita River area, Washita Mountains, there's dogwoods there, of course, and that's kind of where I grew up. And you know, you just look across different forests, makeups across the state, and the dogwoods are kind of like layered in when they start blooming, and you can just see them all the way across the forest. It is pretty remarkable.
Did you see some of the phlox blooming when you were out at the park as well, or?
They had some coming up. It was a couple of weeks ago, so it was not quite up yet.
I need to get out there.
Yeah, it's just so fun to go to all. I mean, in the botanical garden too. I haven't made it there at all.
No, so. It's hard to find time this time of year, but we are fortunate to have some great parks and the botanical gardens that does a great job. So
well, I could list like 16 more plants. But I did have candy tuft on my list.
Nice.
I obviously went with ground cover theme somehow. I have all kinds of beautiful things. I have a very pretty red bud at the corner of my yard, which every day I admire.
The flamethrower?
Well, I have the flamethrower. My flamethrower red bud is still young. And so it turns out, actually, this is kind of an interesting thing that I learned last year when I was distressed that the flamethrower was not coming back. They do not bloom when they're young. They don't have as many blooms. So it takes actually 3 to 5 years to really get more and more of that, the red bud, which is why we buy a lot of them, or plant them. So my flamethrower this year has more than it had last year. And again, I think red buds are doing better this spring, but they're all very close to the trunk, you know, inside the branches. But it is starting to put out little baby heart leaves, which is just the sweetest thing. That's what's really fun about red buds too. They're heart-shaped leaves. But
and the flamethrower, just the color on the foliage is the big draw.
Maybe if we do summer showy plants.
Yes, we can talk about it again,
because you almost have to wear sunglasses to look at it. It is so bright and vivid in its foliage color. But anyway, the candy tuft is a low ground cover. Also, Iberius sempervirens. It gets about 12 to 18 inches tall and 24 inches wide. And so it's a mounding plant. It is evergreen most of the year.
Hence the sempervirens.
Yes.
Forever green.
Thanks for that.
Yes.
That's why we have you here.
I know.
The candy tuft does bloom white this time of year. Little clusters of white flowers on top of the evergreen foliage. Mine is in a place that is pretty again, tough soil.
Right.
And it's held up for years in that area. And it is a full sun ground cover, but mine gets probably half day of sun, and then the trees behind it will start shading it. And it's actually hung out with that. So it does, it probably gets up to 6 hours, as the sun moves a little higher. But the evergreen quality in mine might be less because of the shade that it does get after leaf on. But it comes back every year, and it's right now, both of my plants, I have it flanking a little walkway, and they're just full of white, happy,
It really reminds me of like a creeping phlox in a way.
Yeah.
It has that same kind of.
It's a different, It could be used interchangeably or together.
Right.
I like the foliage of candy
I was going to
tuft
say
much
it doesn't. Yeah, when creeping phlox is done, it kind of gets ratty looking. I think.
Yeah.
So
and it just has a different leaf shape, as you can imagine. In my thing. It does have a little more roundness to it than the creeping phlox.
Right. That's a little, more pointy.
Yeah, we have a lot of very experienced landscapers and people that know what they're doing that love the Iberis.
Yeah.
They tell me it does its job.
Yeah.
It's a rock star. It's low maintenance. And like you said, it doesn't kind of get funky after the show. So
yeah, there are a couple of varieties out there. We have some in now, but not. There is a reblooming. They came out with a second bloom cycle one. I don't remember the cultivar name. We had it a few years back. I haven't gotten it since. Put that on the list for next year.
Yeah,
but it is a spring bloom, and then it's just a nice mounting ground cover,
which is nice. It fills in the space and holds the weeds at bay and all that too. That's nice. Well, the last one I had to talk about was it's a sentimental plant. Is just the woodland phlox.
Oh, yeah.
I just
love it.
It's just one of my favorites, and again, shade plant. Just a woodland, and this is the little woodland phlox that blooms blue or purple in the spring. Phlox diviricata.
Nice. I think you got it.
I think I got it that time. Yeah. But we have the cultivar, or I guess it's the selected cultivated variety called Blue Moon.
It is very close to species. I'm not actually sure what's different about it because the color is the same.
It is the same. And I think it was just selected from the native population to cultivate is what I read. Just it was just selected because it had a rich color. This one's just about to bloom. But yeah, I remember as a kid finding them in the woods and of course picking bouquets. So I know, but it's just, it was something that you looked for as a kid, but yeah, they're less than a foot tall. This is that little one, wants to be in probably a moist, richer soil in the shade, is where you could plant it. But I have some just growing around a stream bank on my property, which I just look for every year. And
we always carry that plant. There are a couple of variations on it, and even some crosses with another native phlox, low growing phlox. There's a patch not very far from the nursery. If you go on Mallywagnon, which is a road straight across the nursery, from the nursery here, and there's a natural spring that comes out of the side of the hill before the little creek, and it blooms there every year.
Oh, nice.
There's a nice display of it, followed by jewelweed as it gets warmer. It's a really cool little system going over there.
Oh, that sounds pretty.
You mentioned your creek area, and that's where it's happiest. I've grown it in flower beds, and it lasted for many years actually, but I think the reason I kind of lost it, chickens, because it is a ground cover, so when they decided to start scratching it, they kept damaging it. But also I lost a tree that was providing some of the shade, and so both of those things together kind of took it out. But it did hang out fairly well with drier location.
Right.
So
Okay.
it can be a little bit drier than Creekside.
I was going to say, this is a dry, just a seasonal stream bank. And so it's real rocky. It's actually, I'm sure it has periods of a varied moisture content. So it is tolerant once it's established.
It's definitely one of the more common spring blooming wildflowers you see out in the woods here. So, I mean, they've got to be tough. You see them in a variety of locations. Yeah. So
the only problem I think I've ever noticed with the cultivated, or not necessarily just the cultivated varieties, but in a bed is like powdery mildew can be an issue. But
I never saw it on that one.
Right.
Have you not seen it on that one specifically?
More of a problem on the tall garden.
Yeah,
phlox.
the summer bloomer.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's where I've seen, even in our containers here on the table, that's less of a problem. Yeah, probably so. But yeah, that's one of my favorites, things that I look for. I mean, there's so many things we could talk about that we that we look forward to seeing every spring when everything's waking up. But do you guys have anything else you wanted to mention, or? Yeah, again, I mean, we know that peonies are about to start.
Yes,
that was on my alternative list, and they haven't really started showing, but those are always very popular. A lot of people know those.
Yeah, but we also look forward to them every year, so it's it's exciting.
So that's a later spring. Like, we could do like 3 segments: early spring, mid spring, and late spring, because there's so many plants. But,
yeah. Well, I think we'll just leave it at that for now, and leave us some content to talk about for the future shows. But that's a really that's a good list to start with anyway. So
and we'll have like lots of pictures on our show notes on our blog on the website. So if you want to see some of the pictures are from my yard.
Yes, I've got some.
I think so. Yeah, that'll be fun.
It will. All right. Well, thank you guys for joining us.